Hey everybody, it's Mr. Marshall here at Stony Lane. Today is part 2 of our summer read aloud series of the 100 Dresses. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start by remembering, right? We're going to start by remembering what we were thinking about the last time that we were reading the 100 Dresses, right? We started thinking about all the different characters in the story, right? We were thinking about Wanda, right? This is our character card about Wanda. She comes from Boggins Heights. She has dirty shoes. She was absent and nobody even noticed. We were thinking she doesn't fit in because of all these reasons, because of Boggins Heights, but because of her shoes, because her name is so ethnic. She doesn't have a lot of friends, right? We were thinking about Maddie and Peggy, who weren't really being very nice to her, right? Peggy was popular, and Maddie was her friend, and she does whatever Peggy does, right? So we were thinking about these things, and so now we're getting to the middle of our book. We're getting to the middle of our book, and in the middle of our book, we start thinking about how is the issue affecting the character? How is the character affecting the issue? Remember how an issue is bigger than just one story? An issue is something that will always be there, right? And we were thinking that the issue in this story was about fitting in, right? Because it sounds like Wanda's having a hard time fitting in, and it sounds like these other girls are not making it any easier for her, right? So we want to start thinking about how this issue of fitting in is affecting Wanda, right? We want to think about how the relationships of these characters is developing, right? Because all characters have a relationship, so sometimes it's a good one and sometimes it's not a good one. So Wanda has a relationship with Peggy and Maddie, right? How is it changing? And how is the character changing? What's causing her to change? So those are some of the things that we're going to think about today. We're going to think about those things, and I've been thinking a lot about Wanda, and I really feel bad for her, don't you? Don't you feel sorry for her? It sounds like she's making up stories about owning 100 dresses and all these shoes and everything just so she fits in, right? I don't think people should have to do that, right? Let's see what's happening. All right, so we're going to continue. We're in the middle of chapter 2. Then the outer fringe of the crowd of girls. Yeah, we were imagining what would happen, how they would all laugh at her, right? The outer fringe of the crowd of girls would break away gradually, laughing, and little by little in pairs they would disperse. Peggy, who had thought up this game, and Maddie, her inseparable friend, were always the last to leave, and finally Wanda would move up the street, her eyes dull and her mouth closed tight, hitching her left shoulder every now and then in the funny way she had, finishing the walk to school alone. Right? This is what happens all the time. They tease her about the 100 dresses all the time. I don't like that. Do you like that? I bet you don't. Peggy was not really cruel. She protected small children from bullies, and she cried for hours if she saw an animal mistreated. If anybody had said to her, "Don't you think that's a cruel way to treat Wanda?" she would have been very surprised. Cruel? What did the girl want to go and say she had 100 dresses for? Anybody could tell that was a lie. Why did she want to lie? And she wasn't just an ordinary person. Else why would she have a name like that? Anyway, they never made her cry. So all that's true, right? They didn't make her cry, but they were still really mean, right? So, but it says here, who was that? Peggy was never mean to animals. Peggy thought of herself as a nice person, right? So Peggy thought she was nice. And she thought Wanda deserved it, though. Does anyone deserve it to be treated that way? Boy. What do we know about fitting in? We know that that's hard. People want to fit in because they want to have friends, right? But it's not always easy. And sometimes there's characters around them that make it harder, right? Let's keep going. As for Maddie, now we're learning about Maddie. This business of asking Wanda every day how many dresses and how many hats and how many this and how many that she had was bothering her. Maddie was poor herself. I didn't know that. It bothered her, it says. Maddie was poor herself. She usually wore somebody's hand-me-down clothes. Thank goodness she didn't live up on Boggins Heights or have a funny name, and her forehead didn't shine the way Wanda's round one did. What did she use on it? Sapolio? That's what all the girls wanted to know. So wait a second now. This is crazy. Maddie's poor too. Why would she tease someone if she has this problem too? It says that she's poor too. Why is she doing this? She's teasing them, right? She's teasing Wanda. So it's making me think that, like, here's Wanda on one end, she's really poor and she's being teased for it. Here's Peggy, who's doing all the teasing, and right in the middle is Maddie, who is teasing even though she's poor, right? That's like it sounds like Maddie's a part of the problem, even though she should know better, right? That makes me mad at Maddie, right? Let's keep going. Sometimes when Peggy was asking Wanda those questions in that mock polite voice, Maddie felt embarrassed and studied the marbles in the palm of her hand, rolling them around and saying nothing herself. Not that she felt worry for Wanda exactly. She would never have paid any attention to Wanda if Peggy hadn't invented the dresses game. But suppose Peggy and all the others started in on her next. She's afraid of being next. She wasn't as poor as Wanda, perhaps, but she was poor. Of course, she would still have more sense than to say 100 dresses. Still, she would not like them to begin on her. Not at all. Oh dear. She did wish Peggy would stop teasing Wanda Petronsky. What? This is crazy. So why would Maddie do that? Why would Maddie continue to tease? It sounds like this just told us. She's afraid of being teased. She's afraid of being teased too because she's poor. Do you know anyone like that? Do you know anyone that acts mean because they're afraid of others being mean to them too? It sounds like Maddie has a problem with fitting in herself, doesn't she? But she handles it differently. It sounds like Wanda handles it by making up stories. Maddie handles it by teasing too. That's terrible. Who do you like better? Do you like Wanda better? Or do you like Maddie better? Right? Because sometimes we learn about characters by the way they do things and how they solve their problems. Right? Let's keep going. Chapter 3. A Bright Blue Day. Somehow Maddie could not buckle down to work. She sharpened her pencil, turning it around carefully in the light red sharpener, letting the shavings fall in a neat heap on a piece of scrap paper, and trying not to get any of the dust from the lead on her clean arithmetic paper. A slight frown puckered her forehead. In the first place, she didn't like being late to school. And in the second place, she kept thinking about Wanda. Somehow, Wanda's desk, though empty, seemed to be the thing that she saw when she looked over to that side of the room. It sounds like she's got some feelings going on. Maddie's got some feelings going on. She didn't want to be teased, and now she's feeling bad because Wanda didn't show up. She's worried about Wanda, isn't she? Somehow Wanda's desk. Okay, here we go. How had the 100 dresses game begun in the first place? She asked herself impatiently. It was hard to remember that time when they hadn't played that game with Wanda. Hard to think of all the way back from now when the 100 dresses was like the daily dozen to then when everything seemed much nicer. Oh yes, she remembered. It had begun the day when Cecile first wore her new red dress. Suddenly the whole scene flashed before her, swiftly and vividly before Maddie's eyes. It was a bright blue day in September. No, it must have been October, because when she and Peggy were coming to school, arms around each other singing, Peggy said, "You know what? This must be the kind of day they mean when they say October's bright blue weather." Maddie remembered that because afterwards it didn't seem like bright blue weather anymore, although the weather had not changed in the slightest. As they turned from shady Oliver Street to Maple, they both blinked. For now the morning sun shone straight in their eyes. Besides that, bright flashes of color came from a group of half a dozen or more girls across the street. Their sweaters and jackets and dresses, blues and golds and reds, and one crimson one in particular caught the sun's rays like bright pieces of glass. A crisp, fresh wind was blowing, swishing their skirts and blowing their hair in their eyes. The girls were all exclaiming and shouting, and each one was trying to talk louder than the others. Maddie and Peggy joined the group, and the laughing and the talking. "Hi, Peg. Hi, Maddie," they were greeted warmly. "Look at Cecile." What they were all exclaiming about was the dress that Cecile had on, a crimson-red dress with cap and socks to match. It was a bright new dress and very pretty. Everyone was admiring it and admiring Cecile, for long, slender Cecile was a toe dancer and wore fancier clothes than most of them. She had her black satin bag with her precious white satin ballet slippers slung over her shoulders. Today was the day for her dancing lesson. Maddie sat down on the granite curbstone to tie her shoelaces. Can you picture this? Can you picture this? Can you picture Cecile? She's wearing this beautiful dress, and everyone knows she always wears beautiful dresses, right? And so they all want to be like her. But Maddie can't do that, right? Because Maddie's poor. So she really wants this, but she can't have it. There must be a lot of feelings going on in her heart, right? Let's keep going. Maddie sat down on the granite curbstone to tie her shoelaces. She listened happily to what they were saying. They all seemed especially jolly today, probably because it was such a bright day. Everything sparkled. Way down at the end of the street, the sun shimmered and turned to silver the blue water of the bay. Maddie picked up a piece of broken mirror and flashed a small circle of light edged with rainbow colors onto the houses and the trees and the top of the telegraph pole. It was then that Wanda had come along with her brother Jake. They didn't often come to school together. Jake had to get to school very early because he helped old Mr. Heaney, the school janitor, with the furnace or raking up the dry leaves or other odd jobs before school opened. Today he must be late. Even Wanda looked pretty in the sunshine, and her pale blue dress looked like a piece of sky in the summer. And that old gray toboggan cap she wore, it must be something Jake had found, looked almost jaunty. Maddie watched them absent-mindedly as she flashed her piece of broken mirror here and there, and only absent-mindedly she noticed Wanda stop short when they reached the crowd of laughing and shouting girls. Okay, so right now, Wanda and her brother showed up, right? And she's wearing her dress. "Come on, Maddie. Come on," Maddie heard Jake say. "I gotta hurry. I gotta get the doors open and ring the bell." "You go the rest of the way," said Wanda. "I want to stay here." Jake shrugged and went up on Maple Street. Wanda slowly approached the group of girls, with each step forward, she put her foot down. She seemed to hesitate for a long, long time. She approached the group as a timid animal might, ready to run if anything alarmed it. Even so, Wanda's mouth was twisted into the vaguest suggestion of a smile. Can you picture that? She's going. She must feel happy, too, because everybody must feel happy on such a day. As Wanda joined the outside fringe of girls, Maddie stood up too and went over close to Peggy to get a good look at Cecile's new dress herself. She forgot about Wanda, and more girls kept coming up, enlarging the group and all exclaiming about Cecile's new dress. Isn't it lovely, said one. Yeah, I have a new blue dress, but it's not as pretty as that, said another. My mother just bought me a plaid one out of one of the Stewart plaids. I got a new dress for dancing school. I'm going to make my mother get me one just like Cecile's. So they all want to be like Cecile, right? Because they all think this is a great dress. Look at this picture. There they all are. The one in the red dress, that's Cecile. Remember it said that she was tall? And she was wearing a crimson dress, that's red. Everybody was talking to everybody else. Nobody said anything to Wanda, but there she was, a part of the crowd. The girls closed in a tighter circle around Cecile, still talking all at once and admiring her. And Wanda was somehow enveloped in the group. Nobody talked to Wanda, but nobody even thought about her being there. Maybe, thought Maddie, remembering what happened next. Maybe she figured all she'd have to do was say something and she'd really be one of the girls. And this would be an easy thing to do because all they were talking about was dresses. Maddie was standing next to Peggy. Wanda was standing next to Peggy on the other side. All of a sudden, Wanda impulsively touched Peggy's arm and said something. Her light blue eyes were shining, and she looked excited, like the rest of the girls. What? Asked Peggy, for Wanda had spoken very softly. Wanda hesitated a moment, and then she repeated her words firmly. I got 100 dresses home. That's what I thought you said. 100 dresses? 100? Peggy's voice raised itself higher and higher. Hey kids, she yelled. This girl's got 100 dresses. Silence greeted this, and the crowd, which had centered around Cecile and the new finery, now centered curiously around Wanda and Peggy. The girls eyed Wanda, first incredulously, then suspiciously. 100 dresses, they said? Nobody could have 100 dresses. I have, though. Wanda has 100 dresses? Where are they, then? In my closet. Oh, you don't wear them to school? No, they're for parties. Oh, you mean you don't have any everyday dresses? Yes, I have all kinds of dresses. She's making this up, isn't she? Why would she do that? She's probably trying to fit in, right? That's how this issue is affecting her. It's making her lie. Why don't you wear them to school? And for a moment, Wanda was silent to this. Her lips drew together, and she repeated stolidly, as though it were a lesson learned in school, 100 of them, all lined up in my closet. Oh, I see, said Peggy, talking like a grown-up person. The child has 100 dresses, but she wouldn't wear them to school. Perhaps she's worried of getting ink or chalk on them? And with this, everybody fell to laughing and talking at once. Wanda looked stolidly at them, pursing her lips together, wrinkling her forehead up so high that the gray toboggan slipped way down on her brow. Poor Wanda, right? Now nobody believes her. Now it's even worse, right? Suddenly, from down the street, the school bell rang its first warning. Oh, come on, hurry, said Maddie, relieved. We'll be late. Goodbye, Wanda, said Peggy. Your 100 dresses sound beautiful. More shouts of laughter greeted this, and off the girls ran, laughing and talking and forgetting Wanda and her 100 dresses, forgetting until tomorrow and the next day and the next, when Peggy, seeing her coming to school, would remember and ask her about the 100 dresses. For now Peggy seemed to think a day was lost if she had not had some fun with Wanda, winning approving laughter of the girls. So she's teasing her, right? Peggy's teasing her, and all the girls are like laughing and they're thinking it's cool. That's why she's doing it, right? Yes, that was the way it had all begun. The game of the 100 dresses. It all happened so suddenly and unexpectedly, with everybody falling right in, that even if you felt uncomfortable, as Maddie had, there wasn't anything you could do about it. Did you hear that? Even if you felt uncomfortable at it, there was nothing you could do about it. That's what happens when we tease, right? Everybody wants to fit in. Maddie wagged her head up and down. Yes, she repeated to herself. That was the way it began, that day, that bright blue day, and she wrapped up her shavings and went to the front of the room to empty them into the teacher's garbage basket. And that's where we're going to stop. Wow. It sounds bad, doesn't it? It sounds like she wants to fit in so much. And it's not working. It's making other people do stuff, right? It's making Peggy tease her. It's making Maddie be part of it. Maddie's not really teasing her, but she's letting it happen because she's afraid that she'll be next. That happens with wanting to fit in, right? So why don't you think about that? And I'll see you next time.